Red Bull just lost a system that made them almost untouchable and could erase up to 40% of their biggest performance gain overnight. A hidden advantage, worth nearly half a second per lap, copied across the grid in just weeks, is now being cut after the FIA confirmed it went too far. And here's the part nobody saw coming. That massive jump in Miami, nearly a full second faster, was built around this exact concept. Now it's gone. And when you remove something that powerful, dominance doesn't fade slowly, it breaks. So this isn't just a regulation change. This is a direct hit to Red Bull's core performance. And now the real question is simple. What happens to Verstappen when the car that made him unbeatable is no longer perfect? To understand why this hits Red Bull so hard, you have to go back to the exact moment everything changed, because their dominance didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was built, and it was built in Miami. Before that race, Red Bull was strong but still within reach. After Miami, they became something else entirely, almost a full second faster than earlier races. That's not evolution, that's transformation. And at the center of that transformation was this system, the blown exhaust concept, a design that took something every car already had, hot exhaust gases, and turned it into a weapon. Those gases, reaching extreme temperatures and moving at incredible speed, were redirected with precision toward the rear wing and the diffuser. And when that happens, two things change instantly. Airflow accelerates, pressure drops, the car gets pushed into the track harder without needing larger wings. More grip, more stability, more confidence. And that last part is the one that matters most, because Verstappen doesn't just drive fast. He drives on the edge of control, right at the limit, where the car is almost unstable. But not quite. That's where he finds lap time others can't. And that only works when the rear of the car is completely predictable. This system gave him that. A planted rear, a stable platform, a car that responded exactly the same way every single lap. But now, remove that stability, or even reduce it, and suddenly the entire feeling of the car changes. The rear moves more, the airflow becomes inconsistent, the balance shifts corner by corner, and that forces adaptation. Brake slightly earlier, wait just a fraction longer before accelerating, leave a small margin. And in Formula One, that small margin is everything, because that's where lap time disappears. Quietly, constantly. But here's the part that makes this even more critical. This system wasn't just an extra gain. It was integrated into everything. Rear suspension geometry, floor behavior, aerodynamic balance across the entire car. According to the technical breakdown, Red Bull's Miami package was deeply connected to this concept, not just using it, but depending on it. So when the FIA cuts it, it doesn't just remove performance. It destabilizes the entire structure of the car. And that's where the real problem begins. Because now, Red Bull isn't just slower, they're less predictable. And unpredictability is the one thing that destroys consistency. But here's where it gets even more intense. Because this doesn't affect both drivers equally. Verstappen can adapt. He always does. He can feel the limit, even when it moves. But Hadjar, for a younger driver, this is a completely different challenge. Because when the car stops behaving consistently, confidence disappears faster than speed. And without confidence, performance collapses. That's the hidden impact of this change. It doesn't just reduce lap time. It increases pressure. Inside the cockpit, inside the team. And that's when mistakes begin. But here's the twist that changes everything. Even after losing a huge part of that advantage, Red Bull is still one of the strongest teams on the grid. They don't fall apart. They become reachable. And in Formula One, being reachable is the first step to being beaten. Because once rivals believe they can fight you, they don't hold back anymore. They attack. And that's when dominance starts to crack. And this is where everything starts to shift, because Red Bull isn't just losing performance. They're losing control. Before this change, they dictated the race. They controlled the pace. They decided when to push and when to manage. That's what a big advantage gives you. Freedom. Now, take away a large part of that advantage, and suddenly, that freedom disappears. Because now, Red Bull isn't racing alone at the front. They're being hunted, corner after corner, lap after lap, and that changes everything because strategy becomes more complex. You can't just follow your own plan. You have to react. Undercuts become dangerous. Overcuts become risky. Track position becomes harder to defend, and that's where pressure builds. But here's where it becomes even more intense, because while Red Bull is adjusting, other teams are accelerating. McLaren becomes more competitive when extreme aero advantages are reduced. Mercedes gains when straight-line efficiency matters more. And suddenly, Red Bull is no longer managing one rival. They're dealing with multiple threats, all close enough to fight. But here's the twist that defines this moment. Because Red Bull under pressure is not the same Red Bull. When they're comfortable, they dominate. When they're challenged, they innovate. Fast, aggressively, without hesitation. And that's what makes this moment so unpredictable. Because while the outside world sees weakness, inside Red Bull, something else is happening. They're rebuilding, rethinking the car, searching for the next idea that replaces what they just lost. Because they know one thing. In Formula One, you don't recover by defending. You recover by creating something new. But here's the critical factor. Time. Because innovation doesn't arrive instantly. It takes races, feedback, mistakes. And during that process, they're vulnerable. But here's the final layer. The one everything is building toward. Because if Red Bull finds a solution quickly, this entire moment disappears. The advantage returns. Maybe in a different form, but just as effective. And dominance continues. But if they don't, if the solution takes too long, then the gap closes. And once the gap closes, everything changes. Because now, Verstappen is no longer controlling races. He's fighting for them. And when fights begin, mistakes appear. Pressure increases. Championships shift. So now, everything comes down to one final question. Not about the FIA, not about the system, but about timing. Because in Formula One, it's not just about finding the right solution. It's about finding it before everyone else realizes you're vulnerable. And this is where everything finally reaches the tipping point. Because now, it's not just about Red Bull adapting. It's about whether they can survive the moment before they do. Because in Formula One, there's always a gap between losing an advantage and replacing it. And that gap is where everything is decided. Because during that window, Red Bull is no longer the reference. They're the target. And that changes how every team approaches them. No more waiting. No more playing it safe. Now it's attack. Full commitment. Every race becomes an opportunity. Every lap becomes a chance to take something away from them. But here's where it becomes even more dangerous. Because once another team wins, even just once, something shifts. Confidence, momentum, belief. And belief spreads fast in Formula One. Because the moment one team proves Red Bull can be beaten, everyone else starts to believe it too. And that's how dominance truly ends. Not when performance drops, but when fear disappears. But here's the twist that makes this moment so unpredictable. Because Red Bull has one weapon left that no regulation can remove. Experience. They've been here before. Moments where the rules change. Moments where something was taken away. And every time, they came back stronger. But this time feels different. Because this isn't just a small adjustment. This is a structural loss. A system that influenced the entire car. The rear balance, the airflow, the driver confidence, everything. And replacing something like that isn't simple. But here's the final piece, the one that decides everything. Because while Red Bull is fighting to recover, the future is already being shaped. New regulations, less aerodynamic freedom, more emphasis on engine performance, a completely different direction for the sport. And that means one thing. This isn't just about fixing the present. It's about building the future at the same time. And that's where the real pressure comes from. Because if Red Bull focuses too much on recovery, they risk falling behind in what comes next. But if they focus too much on the future, they risk losing control now. And balancing both is one of the hardest challenges in Formula One. So now, everything comes down to one final truth. This moment isn't just a setback. It's a crossroads because one path leads to recovery, adaptation, a new idea, a return to dominance. But the other leads to something very different, a slow loss of control, a shift in power, a new team taking over the front. And once that happens, getting it back is never guaranteed. So this is the moment, not when Red Bull loses everything, but when they prove whether they can rebuild it before someone else takes their place. And this is where the real answer finally reveals itself. Because this was never just about losing a system. It was about losing an illusion. The illusion that Red Bull was operating on a completely different level. Because when a team dominates like that, people stop asking questions. They stop looking deeper. They assume it's untouchable. But now that illusion is gone. Because once the FIA steps in, once a key concept is cut, what's left is the truth. And the truth is, the gap was never permanent. It was built, engineered, and now partially removed. Which means the field doesn't just get closer, it compresses. And when Formula One compresses, everything changes. Qualifying becomes unpredictable. Races become chaotic. Margins disappear. And suddenly perfection is required. Every lap, every corner, every decision. But here's the part that changes everything. Because this moment doesn't just affect Red Bull. It transforms the mindset of the entire grid. Because now, nobody is chasing a ghost anymore. They're chasing something real, something beatable. And that changes how drivers race. They attack harder, defend later, take risks they wouldn't have taken before. Because now they believe, and belief is dangerous. But here's the twist that completes the story. Because while everyone else is gaining confidence, Red Bull is gaining urgency. And urgency creates something powerful. Focus, clarity, a willingness to take risks they wouldn't normally take. Because now they have to. And that's when teams like Red Bull become unpredictable. They stop refining. They start reinventing, searching for something new, something that replaces what they lost, but in a completely different way. And that's the part no one can measure, because the next advantage is already being built, quietly, behind closed doors, in simulations no one else can see. And when it arrives, it doesn't announce itself. It shows up on track, in lap time, in dominance. But here's the final truth, the one everything has been building toward. Because this moment isn't the end of Red Bull's advantage. It's the beginning of the next phase. A phase where nothing is guaranteed. Where dominance has to be rebuilt, not maintained. Where Verstappen doesn't just lead, he has to fight again. And where Hadjar isn't just learning, he's being tested under pressure. So this is the real answer. This FIA decision didn't just penalize Red Bull, it reset the entire story. Because now, we don't know who the fastest team is anymore. We don't know who controls the season. We don't know who will find the next breakthrough first. And in Formula One, that uncertainty is everything. Because the team that solves it first doesn't just win races, they take control of the future. And right now, that future is wide open.